Four shots. Four shots.
What is up?
Woo!
What's
Hello.
I never get tired of seeing Tony's weird ass face staring right at me at the end of that video.
Hey, Tony. Do you know
You get to see it all the time.
I know.
Do you know what female I'm having rub in my chest? There, I think I asked this.
I have no idea.
Okay,
I mean,
neither
it
do
could
I.
be anybody really.
I still have her as a friend on Facebook from that night. But
Oh, wait,
she
that was
a-
at Havana House.
Yeah, that was a wine rep at Havana House.
Oh,
Brandy,
I think her name was.
That's her name, Brandy, and she was getting quite intoxicated to the point where she was ready to motorboat you.
I don't have to be intoxicated to want to motorboat, Jeremy.
I don't have to be intoxicated to let anyone motorboat me.
Aren't we supposed to do a shot?
Right off
Oh,
the
yeah.
bat.
Oh,
what are
yeah.
you guys doing a shot of tonight?
I brought, like what I said. Here we go. This has been in the cabinet for like 4 years. So we're doing
Jeez.
Fireball.
It's a well-aged Fireball, then.
Yeah. It's oak aged. It's a special edition because the plastic cap on the top that only comes with the high-end bottles.
You're supposed to rip that off. I thought we had that problem in my side.
We did, but I just didn't do it yet. Okay.
I have rum, JM rum this week. It's from Martinique. I don't know. I've never had it, so we'll give it a shot.
All right. Well,
Fancy.
everybody watching along, hold up your shot. Type in your comments what you're doing tonight. I'm having a Negroni myself.
Ooh, fancy pants.
I know. Let's have shot number 1. There it is.
Oh, that's not good at all. Why is it always so bad when I first start?
It's always something that's going to be rough.
The first shot of Fireball is delicious because I love cinnamon.
I might have to go back and get the Goldschlager again.
Oh, Goldschlager.
I have Jaeger down there too. That was
If Tony, if you have to go get something good, don't suffer. Don't suffer on account of the show.
I would not. I do not recommend this rum.
What is it? What kind of rum is it?
It's just
Where's
a
it
white,
from?
It's a white rum. It's from Martinique, but it's got that like it almost tastes like cachaça. If you've ever had cachaça, it's like salt watery.
Oh, like a brine.
It's like eating it's like eating an oyster.
Oh, it's gross. I mean, I like oysters, but I don't want to drink it in my rum.
No, this isn't that good.
Well,
so we'll probably have to take a commercial break for Tony
for you to get that. Well, for everybody who's watching along for the first time, this is 4 shots with Tony and Jeb. Jeremy.
Oh, that was kind of a joke. I didn't know it was actually. Yeah, my bad.
It actually shows up. Tony and Jeremy, and here we talk about anything and everything, and we do 4 shots, except we never do 4 shots, and we imagine along the way that people are entertained by what they see and hear.
And they're joining us, so we think.
Here, look, Michael, he's right. It does. It does taste like more, and that's the way this rum tastes. It tastes like a shitty, like Blanco tequila, not like a good one, but like a shitty one.
Well, we have some awesome stuff on the show for tonight. We're going to talk about some fresh shit that we got going on this week. And we're going to bring on our guest, Charlie Minato from halfwheel.com. We're going to get into it with him. We're going to check in with Zach. And then if you are following along in the chat, you have a chance to be hit up by Zach, who is moderating and can bring you onto the show for the last segment called Shoot Your Shot, where you can have your comment with our guest. You can ask all of us a question, and whatever. It's like your spot in the limelight for just a few minutes. But if you're boring, if you don't say anything, or if your audio doesn't work, we might just have to boot you out of the stream. That goes
Look,
for Zach.
I put the headphones back, and now I got a baby Huey curl. I'm leaving it.
That looks
It's a
great.
baby man bun.
Yeah, it's a tiny man bun.
It's a baby bun.
I think
It's a baby
Zach's getting to man bun territory.
Oh yeah.
Let's not
No.
talk about that.
No.
So fresh shit. Then
Let's
do we
get
want to? Let's
right
bring
into
on
it?
Charlie.
Yeah, let's introduce he is the creator, founder, writer, halfwheel.com. And he has so graciously agreed to be with us tonight. So everybody, give it up in the chat, wherever you are, for Charlie Minato.
What's up,
Said in
dude?
the chat.
What's up?
Let me tell you, that theme song, if you have to listen to both the producing or the production version and like the YouTube version playing in the background because you forgot to close out of YouTube, that theme song sounds fucking horrendous.
It is
when it's played on like a 10-second delay. Oh yeah, no, but like while I was cleaning out my shot glass, I was like, do they listen to this every fucking week?
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
Twice a week sometimes. I listen to it in the shower.
It's like an
I
audio shot. It's
I
an
kind of
audio
masturbate to it.
Oh,
'cause
no,
it's like
yeah, no,
one
I mean-
shot, two shot. You know, it's like one's for you, one's for me. I
get
think
the
of my
momentum going.
friends.
It's impressive control.
Yeah. I'm skilled. That's what 41 years taught me.
Well,
Well, here in our first segment of the show, Fresh Shit, we like to talk about something this past week, preferably in the last 7 days, that
I'm going to get the Jaeger.
yeah, you're going to. Tony's already out. He's already like, fuck this rum. I cannot enjoy it. So we like to talk about something that we've tried in the last week, whether it be a new drink, a new cigar, even if it's a movie we watched, a show that we checked out on Netflix, something new and fresh that we liked. Jeremy, why don't you go first and tell us your fresh shit? Share your shit.
Yeah, share it. So this week it was kind of fun because I started like emailing different Spotify curators of like playlists. Sorry about that. Hold on. Can you hear that?
Yeah. What?
Somebody called me. No,
Somebody
someone was
called you?
calling me
Oh.
on my phone,
Silence
but
your
it's linked
phone.
to the
Silence your
computer.
phone.
I did. It's because it's
Oh.
linked to the computer. Mac. Gotta love them. Anyhow, so my band, we were like submitting songs to playlists because we've been up for like 4 months, and like, you know, you have your buddies listen to you, and that's about all we can expect. It's not like there's any promotion. It's not like we're playing out there. And but a couple got accepted. So like over the past like week and a half, it's gone from like, you know, 125 listens, I think, to like it's up to like 4,000 now over the past week.
Shit.
So it's kind of cool.
That's
just
like
that,
3,999 more people that listen to this podcast.
I'm confused. Are you saying that your new thing of the week was listening to your own music?
no, it was
That's good. That's good.
See that? See that? Yeah. No, it's not to listening to my own music. It's that the music is getting listened to.
Wasn't that the segment though? The segment was, what are you doing new this week? Or...
No, something that happened or that you did. I didn't do
It's a
anything
really
else.
wide open segment. It's really
Got it.
wide open.
Sorry, no,
I mean,
my bad.
if you
No,
want to tell us that you had a great bowel movement, that's fine.
It's
I'm
literally a fresh shit.
It does say fresh shit on the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, it does. But no, it was what happened that like, oh, that's cool. I did not listen to it. I didn't have it on repeat for the past 70 like week and a half straight, I promise.
Oh my gosh.
That's
Let's do a shot for Charlie. We got to do our one shot with Charlie.
Yeah, yeah.
Start this off,
All right.
Bring him on. Do the shot.
I
What is Charlie? What
What's-
do you have tonight?
I have like the quasi-official drink of Half Wheel, which would be
Diplomat.
Diplomatico
So you have
Reserva
real rum.
Exclusiva.
See, he's the only one drinking good shit.
Yeah. Out of it. That's half wheel though, right?
Yeah,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, I mean,
all right.
the shit at the office is quite. We don't have a gigantic liquor cabinet, so what's here tends to be nice.
Oh, good. Tony, what kind of shit do we have in the office at your office?
The whole store.
The whole
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
got a
say.
whole bar. Cheers.
All right,
Cheers.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
I
I was thinking about
That was way better than this
Yeah.
fucking rum.
I also, if you're talking about, I found this in my humidor today when I was trying to find something to smoke. So an original 702, and I'm sure that the Fireball is not the drink to have with this, but fuck it, let's do this.
Tony, what are you smoking tonight?
Sample.
Ooh.
Shambles.
Secret sample?
Secret sample.
Oh, damn. I'm
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Charlie, if I can ask you, man, you're smoking something that looks good tonight. What are you smoking?
Smoking
Oh!
La Barba.
Ooh,
Wow,
OG.
original.
OG.
I like
Perp.
how. So I win tonight.
You
Yes,
don't.
if that is the contest, you definitely have locked this up. There's zero chance that
Yes.
me at Half Wheel's office could possibly top that.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Not at all.
I've been there, and you have nothing but bundles.
Both
Tony-
of those statements are accurate.
Yeah.
It's all lost and found.
All lost.
Yeah.
Like I said,
We
bundles.
found it.
Bundle.
Wait,
You lost it.
like-
We found it.
like- Right. That's
Tony,
amazing.
what is your fresh shit for the week?
I actually today I made an offer on a house.
Oh,
So that's my fresh shit. Moving out of the condo, moving out of the, hustle bustle of Youngstown city life to, a more rural environment. So
Are you moving to Worcester, Ohio?
no, I would never.
Oh,
If I didn't have to go to Worcester again in my life, I wouldn't.
I lived in Worcester for 3 or 4 years.
You lived in Ohio.
Yes. My
Wow.
mother worked for Frito-Lay, so she was doing like operations of the plant. And then we got to move to Bumfuck, California. And then she finally got moved to headquarters. So yeah.
I used to go to Worcester. It was when I was a wine rep. That was like my farthest out spot. I think it's like an hour and a half from me. But that's how I would go all the way to Worcester, and there's not that much there.
No.
It's quite. I mean, as a kid, it was like whatever. You didn't know any better. But as like a adult, no. It's there's the College of Worcester and Rubbermaid. You can go to the Rubbermaid corporate store.
Right.
Of course.
I'm sold. That's almost as good as the Jelly Belly factory.
Does Rubbermaid give samples? That's the most important question.
I was like 5. I have no idea, but that was like, you want to know what's in Worcester, Ohio? Those are the 2 things, and not even the 2 things of note. Like that's just 2 things that are in Worcester.
I have only driven through Worcester, but I went to high
And
school.
where were you going to go through Worcester?
I was going to pick up my keyboard player who lives like on the other side of Worcester back in the day. I had a band, but I went to school in Uniontown, Hartville
That's a
area.
good question. We'll get back to that, Joe.
Oh, what's this? Hey, I want to know from you guys.
All right, we'll get back to that. Go ahead.
All right. No, that's nothing important. It was just that I had driven through. That's the only time was to pick up my keyboard player one time, and it was like just fences and fields. That's all I remember. Fences and fields. But Tony, what can you tell us about this amazing house? Is it locked up? Is it for?
No,
is it
I mean
deal?
the market's crazy. I was looking at a house before like this whole shit went down, and then the shit went down, and now everybody wants a house. So it's like every 24 hours I'm like making appointments with a realtor to go see a house, and she'll call me the next morning and be like, "Oh, it's sold." So I found a dream house, half dream house I call it, but
half dream.
it got listed yesterday. So I was like, you know what, fuck it, let's just do it. So I called her. I'm like, I want to go see this thing today. I went and saw it, and I was like, I'm going to make an offer right now. And I made it. So I have till 9, I guess, tomorrow when they're going to do their like best offers.
Tony, you do know that when you go to Walmart and you're bidding on, you don't have to bid on the Barbie house. You can just buy it.
Well, I could live in one of those. I'd be very good in a tiny home, I think.
The tiny Tony home. Remember that house that we saw you were shopping before?
Yes. When it had this house I was looking at had like, it was the weirdest architecture I've ever seen in my life. It was like a kind of like a
big
The Shire.
It was like a big salt box house, but the second floor was like a loft. So the living room went all the way to the ceiling. And in the middle of the living room, there was literally in the middle of it, there was a little house that like had it was like probably 6 feet tall, and it had a roof on it. And
Yeah.
I don't know what you would do in there, but
Did
that
you
was,
report these people to the FBI? Like,
Right.
What did he do?
I ain't no snitch.
He's gonna snitch on the.
yeah, house shopping in Youngstown.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude,
We just said
I've
it would
seen
be
some-
tiny Tony house. We were like, that's Tony. Tony's little tiny house. He can go in there and have a little privacy.
I mean, if you watch the show or listen to Robert, you would think that I was 4 feet tall. Like I'm not that short. I'm 5'7". That's
okay.
That's a
Oh,
that's
that
a
was a
very
no comment situation.
that's a
Right.
very that's the average American male height in the United States of America.
That's what you
Oh.
say.
That's the stat.
We'll have to investigate this.
Is that for
Yeah.
all males or like just adult males?
That's the average.
It's for 13 to 16-year-old males.
Got it.
Well, Charlie, so pass to you. What in the last week have you checked out that you really liked or you were into?
I listened to 2 new albums from artists that I enjoy. Not on Spotify. It was not one of the 4,000 people listening to Jeb's band, but
Damn you! You
I
just got to
listened to the
rub it in.
new Vic Mensa. I guess it's more of an EP than an album. It wasn't that long. It was okay. Still like the autobiography a lot more than any of his other stuff. And then the Killers finally dropped their new album, which was
Really? I didn't even know they were back to. I think because didn't he do a solo album?
Yeah.
I think they've all done solo projects at one
Okay.
point or another, but nope, they're still
It's
you
pretty
know,
good.
still making money.
It's good. Okay, I'll have to
Yeah.
check it out. I saw the
Definitely like
Def-
a passion project album more than like they definitely wanted to make an 80s album.
nice. I saw the
But that's kind
Deftones
of
had a
the
new album, too.
transition. They were like, well, with Brandon Flowers, like his solo stuff was like kind of going that artsy 80s thing kind of anyways. It's a good
Yeah.
album. It's worth checking out.
Yeah, I think it'll age fairly well. I still think their first 2 albums, particularly Sam's Town, I think is certainly my favorite of the bunch. But
So are you familiar, like did you follow them all along the way?
I mean, not all along the way, but probably from Sam's Town-ish on.
So I don't know if it's Sam's Town, but I think the song is called like Father's Eyes. That's my favorite track from them, and I can't remember if it's Sam's
Is
Town
that
or
Hot
like
Fuzz?
I don't think it's
can't-
on Sam's Town.
but it's such a good jam. Such a good jam.
Well,
Now I
so-
want to look it up.
I'm looking it up right now.
I listened to a new album this week. I was wondering, Charlie, if it was going to be the one that I listened to. It's Bright Eyes released a new album. Down in the Weeds, Where the World Once Was.
You don't get to talk anymore, Brandon.
Why? Because I like Bright Eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen, I have to be honest. I have not listened to Bright Eyes in probably 8-9 years.
No, I'm
And
joking, man.
It was
I
like
mean,
but I was definitely into them in high school. My best friend got me into them. It wasn't my fault. I was just watching, and the new album came out, and that same friend from high school, my best friend, like from that time, sent me a text. He's like, dude, Bright Eyes released a new album. You got to check it out. And I was at work, so I bought it, downloaded it, and it was fucking legit.
Well, that's funny that you mention it, Matt, because Brandon was talking, so I was pouring another shot.
Did
always happens.
Brandon, did you enjoy the Monsters of Folk album with Jim James and Bright Eyes, Connor Oberst?
I have not heard that album.
Listen,
might have
it's
to check
Jim
it out.
James from My Morning Jacket.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have this all-star cast, and you think it's going to be this wicked cool album, and it's
Yeah.
solid. It's not great. It's solid.
Oh,
But
okay.
I do love My Morning Jacket, and there are elements to Bright
Charlie.
Eyes. I love his storytelling.
We're on
He's
number
a good
2.
writer. Okay.
Well, you guys are doing that shot and chasing that with your groans. I do want to announce another thing before we get too far into the weeds tonight, which is that the official Four Shots podcast channel on iTunes and Spotify, not just Jeremy's music, but now you can listen to Jeremy. Now you can listen to Jeremy on the podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, we are now available. Just search Four Shots with Tony and Jeremy. and you can listen to us on your commute. In the morning, you can listen to 3 to 4 people get drunk and talk about meaningless shit on your way to work or while you're at work. And I ask you guys to subscribe to that so that we can kind of get the following going on that and get up on those charts. Because here's the cool thing. We want to continue to make more content for that. So there are possibly going to be like exclusive audio podcast things that we put up there that we don't put on the live stream. And if you ever miss an episode on a Tuesday night, you'd be like, oh, damn, I missed the live show. Well, on Wednesday morning, it'll be right there for your morning commute to listen to us assholes carrying on.
Speaking of, I think I'm going to make some swag. I was supposed to say this 3 weeks ago. Well, I was going to make some swag and give it away. So
Some swag.
Swaggy swag. So for the 14 the 14 people watching the show right now, if you share it, I'm going to make Zach pay attention to who shares it, and we're going to give you guys some swag. So you got to hit share right now, or in the next like 5 minutes. I'll give it till 30 minutes for shares.
Well,
maybe 40.
Yeah, this really expanded quick from right now to in the next few minutes to 40 minutes.
Naturally. Okay. So, Mr. Minato.
Yes.
Yes.
I have a question for you. I don't really know that much about you. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on the show. So I was thinking maybe you could give us like a little like background history of Half Wheel, of yourself. We got Worcester, we got Bumfuck, California.
Yes.
And then Texas, right? Is that where you ended up, or was there something in between there?
I mean, I went to school in North Carolina.
Okay.
So there was a short break. And I was born in Boston, so almost.
So you've been, and I know you travel a lot just from our conversations on being on the road. But
I do.
Where did
normally.
I guess the first question is, where did Half Wheel start for you guys? Where did this all come from? Where did you fall in love with cigars? The whole thing. Give me all of it.
Yeah, so I smoked cigars on vacations and stuff when I was growing up, and then went off to school. And one night, pretty early on my freshman year, somebody in the dorm had a birthday, and they decided they were going to have cigars on the rooftop, sort of as like a social gathering amongst the males in said dorm. And so I remember going up to the rooftop and being confused about like some of the brands of cigars that people were smoking, because I'd been familiar with, the sort of Cuban brands as well as Davidoff, because one of the trips to the Dominican, that was what was in the gift shop when my dad and I were buying cigars. And then, but I was confused by brands like Oliva, and then God knows all of the like CI, JR House brands that people were smoking, because I think somebody just bought like a sampler. And so I went back and
can you give me a rough year? Like,
is this 2009, I guess?
Okay.
And then I went back and researched and found out that there was all these other brands, and a couple of guys that were like in my hall. We started smoking cigars during football tailgates, and then it sort of spiraled out of control. I wanted to learn a lot more about the business end of it, not like the retailing end, but I was very confused as to why somebody like Plasencia was making cigars for a whole bunch of competitors. And at the time, I guess, sort of, they had their brand that General was selling, but, not really in it. But then you had somebody like Rocky who had, 4 or 5 different companies making cigars, including competitors. And it just seemed to all kind of a peculiar situation, which now, knowing a bit more about other industries, isn't maybe as peculiar, although some parts of it are. Certainly the idea that Rocky has Java made by Drew Estate, and Drew Estate sells more or less the only competing product to Java, is kind of a weird situation that you don't see a lot in other businesses. And so then I wanted to learn more about like the sort of day-to-day at that time, as I'm sure the two of you remember, limited edition cigars, single store releases were becoming more of a regular thing. It's not to say they didn't exist before, but it was getting to a point where almost every week there was some sort of new very limited exclusive item. And Twitter was kind of the place. It was a battle sort of between Twitter and the forums about where you would go on the internet to learn about particularly new cigars. Obviously, if you want to learn about cigars, the forums were still at that point the best place to do it. And so no one was really writing about news-related items to cigars with any sort of consistency. And so in 2010, I decided to start doing it. I had some experience covering Apple and the headphone industry for when I was in high school as a freelancer. And then it sort of spiraled out of control as far as Half Wheel is concerned. So I launched a site in 2010 called the Cigar Feed. And pretty early on, I, for a handful of different reasons, had some pretty decent sources. So the first sort of really big news item that I broke was that Sam Lucia was leaving Oliva. And at the time, that was, I mean, Sam... So there were very few people that were as famous in the cigar business as Sam was. And then, so that sort of put the Cigar Feed on the map, and there were a few other big stories that came along with that. And then in 2011, I had met Brooks, I guess, in late 2010. He was living in Dallas, and my parents were living in Dallas at the time. And so when I was back from school, I would be back in Dallas, and we would meet up a few times and hang out. And he was running a website called Smoking Stogie, which focused on rare and hard to find cigars. Is basically, it was like all the cigars that you wish that you got to smoke but couldn't find and didn't really want to spend the money on. So he was reviewing LFD La Museas, he was reviewing Grand Reservas, all the crazy one-off Fuente stuff, things like that. And we realized that there was a lot of things that he did well that I was not as good at, like particularly photography, because he's a professional photographer. And then there were things that I was doing that he was not very good at, like news, which he wasn't really doing at all, and writing in general, certainly a bit more of my expertise than his. And so in terms of where it started in a noodle restaurant at the MGM during IPCPR 2011. We sat down, and Brooks had tried to get me to write for his site earlier in the year, but we sat down and I said, hey, you know, I think we could work together, but we probably should start something completely new and really try to sort of change what people's perception of what a cigar blog is. And rather than being constrained by turning Smoking Stogie into something or turning the Cigar Feed into something else, we should probably just start from scratch and try to sort of fix whatever mistakes we've made and, you know, use the audiences that we have to build something bigger.
So where did the term half wheel come from?
So the name was thought of by somebody that was working for Brooks at the time named Steve Valle. I'm still not entirely sure how to pronounce his last name or how he pronounces it. But we wanted something that was related to cigars, but was not smoking this or stogie this or whatever. And so we sat down. There was a couple like phone meetings where we were just running through like Dick cigar like books and stuff and trying to pull terms like El Lector and all sorts of other stuff. And at some point, Steve was like, "What about half wheel?" And they're like, "What the fuck?" And he was like, "Yeah." He goes, the English translation of 50 count bundles, which they refer to in the factories as media rueda, which literally means half of a wheel. You know, what about half wheel? Just shortening that out. And it was like, yep, that's the one. And the logo is going to be real simple. We're going to have a spoked wheel and we're just going to cut it in half. And that way it can be related to cigars, but obviously very easily identifiable. And also all the Twitter and Facebook handles were all free, which was a big help.
One thing that bugs me is before Jeremy, I'm sorry. One thing that bugs me is punny names. Like like we have a lot of tanning salons around here, and one of them's called Tanfastic, and one of them's called By the Beach, like BUY the beach, and it drives me crazy. So I don't know why I brought that up, but I just was thinking about punny names because it's like, well, no, like there's a lot of places like that use that punny kind of thing. And I think what you guys did was very clever in that if you know cigars, you know why, but if you don't, it's still a place where you can go. It's not like, you know, I can't even think of a pun because I hate them that much, but I think it's very good what you did, and you've become a market leader. You guys have become a market leader. Like when I wake up in the morning, I check half wheel, and I think the naming and the branding is so good that that's the first thing that comes to. Yeah. I'm just being serious, man.
He's just telling the honest truth, man.
Jeez,
don't
I'm
that.
just saying that's what I do in the morning. I think about Charlie every morning.
Wonderful.
Should you really? How are you going to sleep tonight?
I'll sleep fine. I had a whole conversation with him. I'm gonna
I-
think about him all night, and then wake up in the morning and think about him even more.
Well, what I was going to say is, so being like a cigar enthusiast, aside from like working in the industry, like, you know, like when Half Wheel came about, I remember I met you, Charlie, at the Davidoff Golden Band Awards that Rob and I crashed. I think it was 2013. Was that New Orleans? 12 and 13, or was it just
No, 12 was
13
Orlando.
was Vegas.
okay? So it was in New Orleans.
Yes.
14, I think.
So 14. And it's funny because we had crashed the dinner and we were having a good time hanging out with everybody. And then someone goes, "Oh, that's Charlie." And I turned around and I was like, "Oh, that'd be cool. Like, I want to meet this guy." And I thought you were going to be like a 52-year-old white dude.
It's like a
And
cigar. What are you expecting?
And then you turn around, or I turn around and I'm like, where is he? You know, like, and then I get pointed at,
Probably
like,
talking to a 52-year-old white dude.
for sure.
There's
Especially
a couple of those in this industry. Yeah.
But it was Matt Booth. I think you said like, "No, that's Charlie." And I was like, "Oh, serious?" And I came up drunkenly and introduced myself to you. But because I went there for the free booze and the free dinner. But yeah, it was kind of funny.
I can't believe that statement. I find it completely incomprehensible.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's all Jeremy shows up for.
Right.
That was the Golden Band Awards where, because it was off-site, they took the liquor back into the bus.
What?
And then we like went to Bourbon Street.
Yeah, and so Rob and I walked back because you had to go through. So like we were in our suits, and by the time we like got back, people were like on Bourbon Street running into us, and then they're like, "Why are you wearing a suit?" And I was I wanted to get into and it was like dripping sweat, and I was like, I wanted to get some free dinner, and like, you know, Rob took me as the +1, even though he didn't have an invite. And I think it was the year that the Escuro launched. Was that?
Yes, it was the Escuro.
So,
welcome to Brazil.
Right. Yeah. But
were you at the parking lot for that?
Yes.
Yeah, I was there too. That was a much better party than the Golden Band ones.
Yeah, so
I don't know where the fuck I was.
You were probably with your dad.
Oh, you say it like you're a jealous girlfriend. Like it's my fucking dad. Like
I want to be with Gino. No,
I probably
but
was. Okay.
If Gino says Tony has to go somewhere, I mean, what's Tony going to say? He's got
right.
Go.
I probably was with my dad.
But yeah,
jeez.
It's funny though how you formulate. The reason I say it is I have no idea why there was any preconceived notions, like, because I read the stuff and it's not like his writing style gave me. I don't know. I think it's just because it was so typical of the industry that if you're in the industry or writing about it, you're probably 55 and white, like that. I just expected it, and then you turned around and I was like, that is not who I expected. And
Joe, if I know Charlie, that's definitely a real Herman Miller chair.
Neither one of them are. They are
really
reproductions.
Ooh,
no.
Oh,
No.
that surprises me.
Good.
I would,
Joe with the good questions tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's they're nice. They're close. They use a different foam than the Herman Miller or the Vertu ones do, but we're not in the business of spending 11 grand on chairs for decoration.
No, you're not. That's weird.
It's good. It's good to know you're not full bourgeoisie yet. You know, don't want to be too bougie.
No, I mean, I don't think we do it anyway, but particularly in this room where, you know, this is where we're designed to smoke in. The idea of having somebody come over and drop ash all over a $5,000 chair wasn't, or me doing it and then blaming it on Brooks wasn't really high up on the list of things to do.
Jeremy, Charlie, I want to ask you a question. Very briefly, I have one cigar review publication to my name, believe it or not. I wrote one review for the Two Cigar Guys and a Humidor, I think. Tony, Ryan, the cop.
Two guys, one stick.
No.
Damn it.
Is that
That was an
the-
actual cigar blog.
No,
No.
That's amazing.
that's a
Hold on, you
pretty
guys don't
great
know
name.
about this?
No.
All right, Brandon, finish, and then we'll talk about Two Guys,
Okay,
One Stick.
very quick. I just want to say I wrote one review about the it was the La Roar 107 Maduro. It was my like favorite cigar when that came out. It was the like Churchill size. And I had a really good time writing it because I'm a writer, but I write other things. I'm not gonna say what it is because it's lame.
I'll
but
say it is poetry.
So I have publications. I have many publications to my name for that.
Of poetry.
And so a friend at Havana House, he has his own blog. He asked me to write a review, and I found it extremely difficult, despite my experience as a writer in other areas. Will Marxist, that's amazing. So what I wanted to ask you is that, like, just briefly, like when you are gonna like review another cigar, or you're gonna kind of approach another thing, like what's kind of like the thing you think about like going into it, a new every time, because you've done so many probably at this point. How do you go into each one, like mentally kind of preparing yourself to do another one? I'm curious, just as a writer myself, how you do that after doing it so many times.
I bet Tony could probably relate to this in the sort of wine tasting thing. Not a ton of like thought, and I try not to think too much about what I'm going to review and sort of have any preconceived notions. Certainly it happens, and we don't review cigars blind, so that sort of means that there's always going to be some preconceived notion. But I try not to like research the cigar until after I'm done smoking all 3 samples. I try not to think about what the price is. Obviously, sometimes that's tough with some of the super expensive stuff where it's super obvious what the price is. But really, the key thing for me, at least, is just to sort of do it in repetition and to have sort of a similar practice. So I review cigars alone. I used to review them late at night, a couple hours after dinner on my patio. Now that we've spent all this money on this office, I do it sort of later in the afternoon. I would never do it at 10 o'clock in the morning because I would just get distracted with emails and other stuff. So I try to do it when I'm going to be left alone the most. I don't ever do it when somebody else is around because that's a recipe for disaster. And then, it's just it's work at this point. So it's not like any,
what I've noticed, not to interrupt you, but what
No,
I've
go.
noticed with the wine stuff is like, everybody always asks me like, when's the last time you drank a wine or tasted a wine that you actually enjoyed? And that's a very difficult thing in what we do. It's like, you've, and Jeremy and Brandon and I were discussing just like brief notes about, what we're going to talk about today, and having going to school for this, my palate has been like specifically trained from somebody that has a better palate, so to speak. Right. So it's like, I had a kind of a mentor or whatever, and they kind of directed me on how to like taste the things that I can taste or have the feelings. Man, cigars are so, if I say feelings in the mouth, I know everybody's going to laugh, but I'm going to say it. But to have like the feel, like those, like the body in your mouth, and
the big hard one.
Yeah. See, I knew it was going to happen. But to like experience flavor, coming from someone that trained me how to do it, I look at every glass of wine that I taste or every cigar that I smoke as I very rarely get to enjoy it anymore. And I think that kind of sucks. And I personally, I'm kind of tired of, trying to evaluate every single thing that I do. And it's very hard to kind of escape that mentality. So I guess like with you, do you feel the same way that you're like, every time you smoke a cigar, are you like constantly like, like these are the flavor components that I taste. This is why I taste it. I'm thinking about it. Or do you separate that completely and only do it when you need to, like notes or like something for Half Wheel? Do you smoke cigars just for that? And then on like in your recreational time, do you still evaluate and think about it like you would if you had to write about it.
Yeah, or can you tune it out? Can you like block out the professional side and just enjoy it?
Yeah, so the answer is to Tony's question is no, and I guess to your question is sort of yes. I don't like this cigar that I'm smoking right now. I'm not paying that much attention to it, particularly in terms of specific flavors.
I wouldn't pay attention to that cigar either.
Yeah,
Tony
the
once said, "I
nature.
smoke one more purple, I'll throw up." He was like,
That's the nature of it. Like it's I think it'd be a bit different if I was, say, a restaurant critic and it was a bit easier of a connection, because the reality is that what I do is so far removed
Ooh.
from what any consumer does.
Hey,
You know, it's a such a different process. And what we do at Half Wheel, where there's an Excel spreadsheet for scoring, and there's specific notes on a third by third basis where we're looking at flavor and construction and body and balance. There are some consumers that will talk about that, but they'll pay attention for 5 minutes and then they'll move on to whatever else. And I'm smoking cigars. I'm not drinking anything. I'm not even drinking water 99% of the time. And that only happens when I really feel the need that I need to drink water because I'm coughing or something along those lines. So it's a completely different activity compared to, when I'm smoking cigars like this, or when I'm, smoking cigars with a handful of friends. I'm certainly going to pay attention to, if it's a cigar that I'm smoking for the first time because I'm just kind of curious, I'll pay attention to, what the flavor profile in terms of, is it going to be sweet or sour or spicy, whatever. But I'm not going to pay attention to whether or not, that's lavender or cardamom or any of those things. And the way that we do this is so different. I was sitting there and smoking those samples that you were smoking. What I'm looking for in a cigar review is not what you're looking for in those samples. And it wouldn't be what I was looking for in those samples either. Because like with wine, I mean, we're just trying to, as reviewers, we're trying to give people some ideas to what they might expect. But ultimately, the way that flavor works on a biological level is so complex, particularly when you're talking about something like cigars, where you are tasting the smoke and then trying to, figure out what that chemical reaction of, your palate tasting the smoke reminds you of in other things. And that's why when you read these, what people consider to be relatively crazy notes at Half Wheel when it comes to flavors like fatty tuna or charred chicken skin or pencil lead, like it's not that
one's my favorite, by the way, the chicken skin.
It's not like we're tasting like pencil lead, hopefully. I mean, I'm sure as kids, some of us did, but like, that's not what that is. That's a reminder of this kind of tastes like a memory, or causes a chemical reaction that tastes like a memory of the smell of pencil lead. And so sometimes it's not extremely useful for us as cigar reviewers. Like sometimes a cigar kind of tastes like a memory that I have in a particular place and time that is utterly ridiculously useless for me to say when describing, a cigar. And so instead, I need to try to find things that you may or may not, as a reader, be able to identify. But it's not, I have the ability to turn it off quite easily, because for me to be in sort of reviewer mode requires so much mental energy and focus. And it's not to say that it's hard. It's just you have to isolate, at least for me, I have to isolate myself out pretty hard. And that's why I always find it crazy that, like, I'll see pictures of people at Tops is smoking cigars for, trying to do a blending session. There's, 6 people at a room with 40 cigars on the table, and you can't fucking make out anyone's face because there's so much smoke in the room. And it's like, this is probably not the best way to develop your blends. And I know we need to do another shot, or at least there's requests, and then I'll talk about you guys once.
We'll do
And if I may add to that, like, sentiment, we'll take a shot and then I'll make a comment.
You're just going, Jeremy. You don't even give a shit for the cheers or anything.
No cheers. Drink the shot. Just
Charlie, cheers.
Cheers.
Sorry, I'm disrespectful on it, not intentionally. What's funny to me is, like, so obviously, like, working for a manufacturer, you end up smoking predominantly that manufacturer's cigars, and you end up finding nuances and things because you get into them, because that's what you're smoking primarily, right? And it even kind of changes your palate in a sense. Like, I worked for a company prior that was not typically the cigar I would go to, but over time I started finding things that I really liked about those cigars, despite the fact that up front they weren't really my thing. And what I find is that it gets way overcomplicated because like when I'm hanging out with friends, I'm never smoking my own shit. And people are always like, well, don't you like this stuff? And it's like, yeah, but it becomes almost like I enjoy, like the reason I'm smoking this cigar is because when I do get to smoke with people for enjoyment, even though, you know, I'm not going to call this work, but even like we're getting to hang out, I want to pick something that I enjoy smoking because like it's more the community of like, what are you smoking? What am I smoking? And like, you know, even if I'm not talking about the cigar whatsoever, but it's like you talk about memories being conjured and flavor. It's like anytime I smoke a Caldwell or La Barba, I'm thinking about work. So they're not the things I typically smoke when I get to just have enjoyment, you know, like because I just want to smoke something that's I can completely separate from like this is associated with I have duties and how I support myself. And this is just for enjoyment. And I don't know how that correlates, but I mean, I think it does. Like,
So
I mean, there's some great quotes for an event poster. Like, I sell stuff that I don't particularly like, and these are the cigars I have to smoke for work, but not what I smoke on my own time.
Right.
Come by some Caldwell stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Right. Hey, you know what? I mean, but I think that's the whole thing, though. Is like I've never been a guy. I got chewed out by the last manufacturer I worked for because he got in my car and we were on a sales trip, and I was smoking a particular cigar, and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I was like, "It's 8:30 in the morning, and we're driving an hour and a half. I'm going to smoke what I want." And he's like, "But you're on the company dime." And I was like, "We're not in a shop. What does it matter?" And like he got like, "You don't only like." There was this like tension, and I was like, "This is bizarre. Who the fuck cares that much? It's tobacco." Like
the part about that's so dumb though, and I think it's gotten better in this industry for the most part. There's certainly still some companies where that's the case. Is like, you know, I want, if I owned a cigar company, I mean, I first would immediately stop owning a cigar company. But like, if I was forced to own one,
It's
like,
not that fun.
I would want my reps like smoking, like
The competitors.
either A, as much of my competitor stuff as possible, or B, I would want, and I'd probably assign each of you like 2 of our cigars, and I would have you smoke those 2 cigars at least once a week. So that way I would have at least somebody that's going to smoke the same cigar 52 weeks a year. And you can tell me if, you know, you have 2 or 3 bad weeks where, you know, like, wait a minute, like, you know, we might have a bad batch here. But like this idea that you should never smoke any of your competitor stuff is crazy. And that's how you get left behind when, you know, the 6x60 craze starts, is like just this complete aversion to anything other than what we've done. And we, to be fair, like I say no to most of the ideas that we, you know, get presented at Half Wheel by other people, but like I'm at least going to entertain them. And this idea that like you should only smoke your own stuff and your rep should only smoke your own stuff in private is absolutely nuts and counterproductive.
Well, it's completely counterproductive. I mean, I think that, you know, I was in a couple funny parallels. So when I was in Sonoma, I found this speakeasy where all these winemakers were. And it was at Medlock Ames. It's like this, they have like this weird bar all the way out in the middle of the grape vineyard of all these winemakers, like these famous winemakers. And I ended up there when I was like 30 years old. And I'm in this place and all these guys are drinking like Miller High Life and smoking cigarettes. And I'm like, what's going on? And this was very eye-opening to me. And they were like, we're tired of drinking wine and we're tired of like evaluating it. And we're tired of like trying to like figure it out. We make great wine, but at the end of the day, like what we want to do is drink High Life and smoke cigarettes. And I'm like, that's fair. To parallel it, it's like for us, you know, being cigar manufacturers, if that's what you want to call it, or being cigar media, if that's what you want to call it, whatever we are, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I think that, you know, Yeah, I mean, it's seriously like what are
I mean, well, I mean,
You know what I
you
mean?
are a manufacturer, and he is media, and he is media. Charlie is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that
So
is true.
you're like whatever you want to call it. I mean, those
At
are
least as
literally.
of Tuesday.
But at the end of the day, but my point is, at the end of the day, we do what we like to do. I mean, that's a luxury that not a lot of people are afforded to do, right?
Yeah.
So being consistently and constantly evaluating everything, like that takes pieces away from your enjoyment, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, my general like enjoyment of cigars has plummeted. You know, not in the last few years, but certainly as I became fully employed in the cigar industry. And there are people that would look at that and go, "You're crazy! Like I would love this," but you know, it's a personal relationship that I have with cigars and the cigar industry. But I remember one time I was reading about, I love food and I love going out to nice restaurants, and I was reading about like what the job of a Michelin inspector is to be one of the people that creates the Michelin guide, and it is
That has to be
more or
insane.
less. Yes, it's more or less 2 meals per day, 5 days a week. I think it's 11 inspections per week, with I think 4 weeks off or something. They do cover all of your fitness related expenses, which makes a lot of sense. But
Yes, it
like
does.
this idea of I mean, the whole saying of like, if you do something you love, you never work a day in your life.
No.
That's not true. But it's mostly true, but like it's still work. But also like there is no easier way to suck every ounce of the enjoyment of some activity that you have than to make it work. Because particularly if you're in a situation like most people are, where that's your main or only source of income, like you don't have an option. And in the case of being a Michelin inspector, like you don't have the option to be like, 3 months into it, be like, you know what, like I'm going to take 2 weeks off and, just kind of chill and not overeat myself and not have to think about, whether or not the napkins were placed in the correct manner, and to think about whether or not the water was served at the right temperature, and to think about whether or not the pacing of the meal was proper, let alone all of the food related things. So, it's a demanding task, and obviously in my position it's a bit different because I can control. I don't work for somebody else, so I can control it. I could make it easier or harder on myself, but just like the two of you could. But it's not it very much isn't the most rewarding way, particularly if your idea is I love cigars and I want to just accelerate my love for cigars. Getting into the cigar business is the easiest way to do the exact opposite of that. And that's probably the case in any industry. If you love cars, going into the car business is probably the easiest way to devoid yourself of your love for cars.
Jeremy, you go ahead and I'll say something after.
I've not forgotten about Two Guys, One Stick. We'll get to it.
Yeah, we will.
So it's funny though, because like music to me is exactly what you're talking about. It has never been an interest of mine to try to pursue it beyond enjoyment, because it's the only thing in my life where it's completely controlled by creativity. And like, if you like it, cool. If you don't, it makes no difference to me. I wrote the song and I'm happy with it, and it's like something that sometimes I think we need things to preserve certain aspects. Because like I was that guy that loved cigars, started working retail, then started repping and did all that. And it does that. You lose, like everyone always says, like for the love of the leaf. And it's like, I just want my kid to have new school clothes. I don't really give a shit. And I'm not trying to be callous to the industry, but I mean, at the end of the day, it is a job. And I enjoy like relationships that evolved from it, but it is a job. And a lot of people will hit me up, say, let's smoke cigars, let's get together. And I'm like, I'm not really feeling it tonight. Like, I don't want to go smoke a cigar. Like, I want to just sit in my couch and watch Netflix or whatever it might be. But
yeah, I would say that like on retail, there is a very shitty part of it, which is like, if you have to go clean up, 4 of your customers pissing all over the floor and the wall and the ceiling for some reason, like that sucks. But at least in retail, and it's different than our end of like, we don't, fortunately, we have an entirely virtual business. So I don't see a ton of the pleasure or almost any of it that anyone gets out of any of the work that we do. I certainly hear from people all the time and I appreciate it, even if it looks kind of awkward for me to be taking it. But I don't get that enjoyment of a customer walking into the store and going, hey, I really want to get a cigar for my dad. It's his 65th birthday. And then you find the cigar for him. And the customer comes back 2 weeks later and says, hey, I just want to let you know my dad loved it. He had the time of his life. Like, we don't have that, which is a bit different. I also don't have to clean up pee off of our bathroom floor. So, like, I'll take the win. But, like, there are parts of it that are extremely rewarding. And I understand that Half Wheel is sort of isolated from a lot of them. Not all of them. And we're also isolated from a lot of the shitbaggery. I don't have to deal with customers stealing stuff and peeing on the floor.
Well, you say that, and it's funny because I worked retail just over 11 years. And one of the things I miss most is getting that experience with the guy, like because like when you work for a manufacturer, you're representing a portfolio of profiles that is narrow, right? Whatever they make is what they make, good, bad, whatever. But the beauty of like the shop and someone coming in is I had cigars that I gravitated towards, but when they came in, it wasn't about me. Like, I can't tell you how many events I've had, even working for Caldwell, where a guy comes in and he tells me we're talking profiles and what he's looking for. And I'm like, I don't have anything for you, bro, but I'll take you in the humidor and show you something else, because I want the dude to be a cigar smoker. Like, I don't care if he smokes our cigar. I want him to enjoy his experience. Like, you don't recommend, you can say these are my personal favorites, but like, if it doesn't actually speak to what their specific needs are, then it's kind of a missed opportunity to give that experience to someone that we have all had, which is actually what the first question I wanted to ask you when you came on is what was the cigar experience, not your first cigar, but that you were like, I get this shit, I'm in?
It was probably an Oliva Serie V Churchill Extra. I think it's technically the size. It's still, to this day, it's still one of my favorite cigars to smoke. That's a cigar, because I was in a situation where we had, at the time, now Winston-Salem, which is where I went to school, has a full-fledged tobacconist. I think multiple of them, actually. But at the time, we did not. We had a cigarette store that had literally a walk-in closet that had shelves with cigars on it. And so they had, whatever they had bought from JR, essentially, and that was it. And not to say that some of those cigars aren't good, but, I also didn't know what I was doing, and they didn't really know what they were doing when it came to cigars. So I was smoking, Red Dot Cohibas and Macanudo Cafes and Romeo Reservas. And so the Serie V Churchill was a cigar that I could not I couldn't handle the nicotine at the time, but that was a cigar that really had definitive changes. And today, I still think the cigar is this way. There's a 5 or 10 minute period in the middle of a Serie V Churchill that's just absolutely fantastic, where the cigar seemingly opens up and you get your reward for buying a 7-inch cigar, and then it disappears and it goes back to being good instead of being great. And so that was like okay, wow, like that's a different type of cigar. And that was probably the first one where it was like, this is something very, very different, and proves why that there are all these other brands that don't have the advantages that a Cohiba or Romeo has, and why people like them, and why people on the forums and things like that rave about them. And like I said, to this day, still one of those cigars that I always loved smoking.
And did you find it on your own, like just happenstance, like you were just trying stuff and you went to it, or was there some kind of like why that cigar?
I think I was like, I'm pretty sure that I bought it from Bonita Smoke Shop, because I was trying to find, like, you would see somebody on the forums be like, oh, this just had this, it's awesome. And so then I try to go like chase it down, and you try to find things. Or I tried to find things that way. And I think that was just one of those things that maybe it was like on special or whatever, or, maybe it was one of those things that somebody had recommended on some forum or whatever the case was. It wasn't like I walked into a store and just randomly said, I'm going to grab a Serie V Churchill and go for it. Because had I known, I wouldn't have ever bought like like had I known I was likely going to get nicotine sick, I probably would have not
Right.
spent $10 on a cigar that was going to make me feel uncomfortable, an hour through it. But it was worth it. And fortunately over time that sort of nicotine issue has gone away for the most part.
I wanted to say something a while back. I don't want to get too far into the weeds of all this other stuff, but you said something that like it just really like ticked a box in my brain about enjoyment and about how getting into the business can kind of like suck the enjoyment out of these things right away. And I read a lot of like books on philosophy. I read a lot of books on poetry and do all this other stuff. But Tony likes to make fun of that. But one of the things things that's come up a lot. I read this book recently by this Slavic philosopher named Slavoj Zizek, and
Zizek.
What's that?
Zizek.
Yes, Zizek. Yeah, that's probably the better pronunciation.
I think it's close.
But and I've been reading this book. It's been taking me quite a while to get through it, but the whole kind of like central concept that kind of keeps recurring through it is this idea that real enjoyment is never in the having of anything. It's always in the kind of pursuit of something. That way, like our brains are wired to enjoy the kind of the traversal, what he calls the traversal of the gap, which is when we're going from not having the thing to the thing. That's the traversal of the gap. And that's the part that we actually enjoy. The construction of a project, the blending of a wine, or the pursuit of wanting to buy it, depending on what side of the industry you might be on. But what you guys are all saying is actually backed up by science. It's backed up by philosophy. It's backed up by psychology. That, there's kind of this famous cliche, and he even says it in the book I've been reading, which is that take your favorite food, the favorite people who make it, the favorite restaurant. And if you had to eat it every day for even just like 30 days, by the end of that, you would fucking hate that meal. Like it would drive you insane. And
it's
that's
like
because
Great Escape with the lobsters. Remember? Have you ever seen the original movie with Great Escape when they ate all the lobsters and they hated them?
I have seen that, and he actually mentions that like in the 3rd chapter of the book, that exact thing you're talking about. And another example is there's this favorite episode of the original Twilight series, Twilight Zone, where this gambler.
Wait a minute.
Slightly
Zone or series?
What?
Those are two different things. Because if you're going to say series, then we're going to need to drink more. If you're going to say zone, then we'll continue on.
If you
The
say
Twilight Zone series, the TV series Twilight Zone.
Okay.
not
the Twilight.
I thought you were talking about vampire.
Not Robert Bat, the new Batman. Which, by the way, the new trailer for Batman that came out this weekend was fucking sweet. But that's a whole other conversation. But the point is there's this story where this gangster dies and he goes to heaven, and he like has all the biggest house. He has all this money in heaven, and he like gambles. And every time he goes to the casino in heaven, he wins every hand. He wins all the every craps that he throws and all that stuff. And he's like miserable. And he goes to the angel in this heaven. I'm like condensing it really short for the show, but he goes to the angel and he's like, and he says,
Zizek is not short.
No,
It's not that short.
Zizek is not short. But he says, this is like the worst. Like, I thought heaven would be better than this. And he goes, whatever thought you were in heaven. And this whole idea that winning every time in this reality was actually worse. It just kind of reinforces this whole idea. And I think that I don't have a lot of money to spend on cigars, and I don't work in the industry. So they're drinking because I'm talking. This is what always happens. And I find that I like my time to smoke cigars so much because I maybe get to smoke 5 a week, 4 a week, maybe. And it depends on the time I have kids and all this other stuff. So like when I get to sit out on the back porch, have a cup of coffee or have a glass of wine and smoke, like,
yeah, but Brandon, you're fortunate.
Right.
You're fortunate in that, like, you have the ability to be a consumer, right?
Right.
Which is kind of like our discussion. I guess, and the idea of the palate, and which we never even got into. But
No, we didn't even get to it, but this has all been amazing. This has been fantastic.
it's been a great discussion. But at the end of the day, like you get to, and I don't want to discount you, but you get to smoke cigars ignorantly, right? and I mean it, and I don't mean it like when someone from Youngstown says, "Oh, he ignorant." I mean it in that, like, we spend our,
He gets to smoke cigars with no strings attached.
exactly.
He pays the $10 at the register, and then whatever happens, happens, and he gets to either enjoy it or fucking hate it. But he goes home, and the difference. And I want to be clear, like, if I wanted to do another job, I would do it. It is not the case, at least as far as I think it is, that this is the only job that I am capable of doing. But like, and I enjoy it. But this idea that it is some sort of utopia, and I'm sure many people think that Tony and Jeremy's jobs also are the case, where it's like, oh, you work in a place that's got a lounge with fake Eames chairs and 20,000 plus cigars and apparently no cheap liquor in it. Like, this has to be great. And believe me, it's a lot better than it could be. But it's also,
I can't believe Nick's still listening to this.
Dude,
like,
Nick is in. We
want
might
to
have to
see me
bring him
shit
in on
face.
Shoot Your Shot. Nick might have to come in.
But like, it's not the idea. Like, when I tell people, like, oh, I write for a cigar blog, and we also have a beer blog that I fortunately don't write for. Like, it's not the case that I sit around and smoke and drink all day, despite points to the contrary. Because it's a lot of work, and it's always going to be that way, whether you're running a restaurant or selling cars or whatever your passion might be. Like, it is the case that, like, you might think that you love marijuana more than anyone else on the planet. And if you go to Oklahoma and try to go open up a marijuana store, I can assure you that we can suck the love of marijuana out pretty damn quickly. But you'll probably still love it for the most part, but you're never going to be able to love it the same way, I guess, is maybe the point that I was getting at earlier. Like, it warps it a bit.
Yeah, and what's funny is, like, I would say in the 90th percentile, because I handle, like, the the building of our sales team and hiring and firing and all that, and so I get guys coming to me all the time, and the line is always like, I love cigars so much, like, I want to do this, and it's like, I get that, I do, because I love cigars. I am a consumer, just like Brandon is, just like anyone is. But it's like, do you really understand what you're getting into? Because you might love cigars, but you're not going to love the fact that I'm calling you saying you're not hitting your numbers, and like, you have to do X, Y, and Z, and you have to perform, and if it has nothing to do with
I think that's really the key here, is like, we don't need people in this industry that love cigars. Like, despite whatever you might read on Half Wheel, whatever our next rating is, like, for the most part, people figure out how to make cigars. We have some issues with how do we efficiently sell them. We certainly have some issues with how do we, manage an industry in regards to legislation and those sorts of things. But when it comes to, like, the product, this is not a new product. So, like, we've generally got this under control. And so we need people in the cigar industry that have a lot more to offer than just a love of cigars and a willingness to work because they love cigars. And I imagine that's the case at every company other than maybe Padron, where they just have that shit on lockdown.
Right. No, I mean,
True.
it's because, like, yeah, I mean, like, there's the possibility, like, there's been a few comments of, like, I disagree with, like, whether I'm saying something or Charlie, you said something, or Tony, in the fact that, like, I love what I do. And that's amazing, because, like, you open a shop because you love tobacco and you want to get involved and you want to have a community of people to smoke with. I mean, 90% of the shops in the US are not tobacconists. They're hobbyists and guys who love tobacco who have opened a business. And though it's an amazing thing, it's an odd industry, because we're filled with people and businesses that aren't necessarily actually salespeople. They're people who love the product, and they're like champions for this brand or this cigar. And that stuff has value. It has tremendous value. But, you know, a business is a business, you know, and like it's one of the aspects that I talk to guys that approach me and like, well, I want to get in and I want to like, what do you think about this? And I'm not trying to be pessimistic to them. I'm trying to give them a sense of reality. Like, you won't love it the same way. Like, you may you still will love cigars, but like, here's a perfect example. Years ago, I worked in a church. That shows some upbringing, right?
I'm there with you. I had my own. I was the pastor of a church once a very long time ago.
Once again, like, you are so close to saying things that would be far more interesting. Like, you had your own church would be
right,
incredible discussion. No,
I was the pastor of a church. We could have a conversation sometime, Jeremy. It'd be really interesting.
And we will. But one of the things I noticed is the closer I got to knowing the pastor on an intimate level, the more I didn't want to listen to his sermons, because I knew him on a personal level, and I saw his flaws, and I saw all the things that exist in all of us. But there's this like pedestal. It's very easy to walk into church on Sunday when you're not a part of when you're not a part of it, and look at him and get a good message and feel good and walk away. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the closer you get to that person that's teaching you, the harder it is to actually take the advice from them, because you see all the flaws that we have. And I think in the same way with any industry, especially cigars, it's like the closer you get to the actual running of the business and this and that, it tends to have the less appealing effect. Even when you actually, like, you want to go to the Sunday morning and you want to get your sermon and you want to feel good and challenged, it's absolutely no different than the consumer who appreciates something and then them getting into it, because there's just a whole nother element that they're not realizing when they smoke this, like what went into it, what problems, like you get a bad batch of them and what are you supposed to do with those, and that it's a man-made product, and there's going to be inconsistencies. And all these things end up happening that most people just want to light it up. And I think it goes back to what Tony was saying as far as ignorant is bliss, right? It's not an insult. Exactly. Just enjoying something is the best possible scenario of any product you consume. Is like, I don't need to know everything about it. If I like it and it does what I want it to do, that's the perfect thing for that moment.
Do you guys know the story of the guy who invented Dolby? The Dolby, like that kind of softened. Do you know what Dolby is? Like what the original invention was? Anybody? No,
we're talking about the sound people, right?
Yeah, the Dolby, like Dolby is like a software that, like, it's like Dolby Sound. It's a company now, but it was an invention. This guy, his last name was Dolby. He created this software. He created an invention that removed the pops and the hisses from like old time, like the records and like original recordings from music. And Jeremy, this interests you. You know, you're a music guy. And
you guys want to do a shot?
This is because I'm talking again. I know it's fucking crazy. So anyway, there's this famous story about Dolby, and I don't know if it's like fully true, or if it's kind of a myth about him. But they asked him one time in an interview, like, you know, now that your invention has like changed the music industry, it changed the recording industry, what do you think, like, when you listen to music now? And he said, well, after years of listening to the pops and the hisses, every time I put on anything now, all I hear are the pops and the hisses. And I've always been kind of affected by that, and think we lost Tony. But I've always been affected by that in some way, that like he spent his life trying to solve this problem. And then even after he invented the solution,
can we take a moment to figure out if he gets the house, is that a shot or is that not a shot?
That would shot. Definitely a shot.
Yeah, because money.
Do I think it's better alcohol?
I don't know, but
I mean, you're drinking the best of what's on the table right now. So I think
but that's, I mean, not like we've taken this approach of we can only have like 20 bottles, and like in a world without coronavirus, like if we're gonna have you over the office, like I want to give you something that you don't really want to spend money on.
Yeah,
you know, like
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if I went over to your office, like, and you had something that, you know, I just sort of, it was sort of outside of my normal comfort range, and you were willing to let me drink it, like, I would be very appreciative of that. You know, or Keystone Light, one of the two.
Right.
But
Depending on how the night goes, right?
yeah, I think with the Dolby thing though, like that's just like if you think about like what went into that, like I mean, I'm sure you've had to edit some sound, like it's a fucking nightmare, and then you can't ever watch anything ever again without thinking about like, oh man, like that's where that cut took place. Like
I do it all the time. Every movie I watch, I think about that. I think about the way it's edited more than I think about, you know, the acting performances. But we're an hour and 15 in, and we're working on somebody to come on for Shoot Your Shot. But more than that, there is a final question, Charlie, I'd like to throw at you. It was our
not
original. What's that?
Not two guys, one stick.
Not two guys, one stick. But
Charlie still needs to tell a story about two guys.
I think we kind of have, like, you know, the point of this, right, is to like have a round table conversation.
Yeah.
And it's kind of go in a direction in the way that naturally occurs. So like, you know, like
Very half wheel, like, why do you hate working in the cigar industry? Like, we nailed
this should be. I should rename the episode.
Right.
Yeah.
So like the thing to me is like, so fucking what? Like like we had a conversation, and like we did talk about palettes and like what, like in a way, but from our perspective, and like we agree, we disagree, whatever it might be. The point, like, you know, of like having Charlie on is like, he's so in some ways behind the scene that I was really excited to have him be a part of this, because it's like, let's show Charlie, like, let's get to know Charlie, like without an agenda, you know, so to speak. And that's kind of the fun. It happened last week with Nick. It happened the week before with Maisha. Like, and that's the thing I've enjoyed about this is like, whatever comes out, you know, like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
That's
I was
fireball.
Well, I was curious about, you know, we were going to talk about palettes, like, and how you grow your palate, because Tony went to school to be a sommelier, like I don't know if I said that right. Sommelier?
Sommelier.
Sommelier? I don't know how to say shit.
Yeah, sommelier, I guess.
Sommelier. So like Tony went to school for that, which I think a lot of cigar smokers, as a consumer myself, when I like introduce guys to cigar, just friends of mine, people I work with, a lot of times they seem very sheepish, and they're like, I don't know what's good, you know, whatever you got, you know, whatever. And I always start by asking them, like, how do you take your coffee? Do you take it with cream? Do you drink it black? You know, do you put sugar in it or not? And that kind of helps me, like, if I'm taking my factory worker friends where I work and to Havana House, I kind of have a feeling about what kind of cigar might appeal to them. And I think what I was most interested about having you on tonight is to like, what were some seminal moments or ways that you were able to kind of like blow your palate out? Like, I want to grow it. I want to move in new directions. How do you even take a step? If there was somebody listening tonight, as we kind of close this conversation, somebody listening in the chat or later on the podcast, and they're like, I want to grow it. Like, I want to expand. I want to kind of get out of my comfort zone. What are some tips, or what's something you could tell them that like help them kind of push out into new areas, palate wise and tasting wise?
I mean, in terms of growing your palate, I think the easiest thing to do, or the most effective thing, is just take notes. If you force yourself to take notes, not with every cigar that you smoke, but, you know, with every other cigar or whatever it might be, that's the easiest thing. If you sit down with a sheet of paper and say, all right, every 15 minutes or every half hour, whatever it's going to be, I'm going to write down what I'm tasting. That in and of itself will force you to A, pay attention to what you're smoking, and B, you'll be able to see throughout the progression of both a cigar and a cigar to cigar what is different. And that's really all it's about. You know, in terms of growing sort of your cigar knowledge and trying to sort of hone in or you know, experience new things, you know, I always think that one of the easiest things to do, or the most effective thing to do, it's not particularly easy, I guess, is, you know, if you find a good store that's got an employee or multiple employees who can, are willing to listen to your feedback and then willing to make recommendations about that feedback, that's unbelievably helpful.
That's huge. Yeah, that's huge.
Because they can help be your sort of Sherpa along the way in terms of saying, okay, I smoked this, New World, Connecticut. Here's what I liked. Here's what I didn't like. I smoked this, Davidoff Winston Churchill. Here's what I didn't like. Here's what I liked. I smoked this, Bellotto or, the purple. And here's what I liked about the La Barba. Here's what I didn't like. And then based off of that, they can go, okay, how much money are you looking to spend and how many cigars do you want me to recommend? And, I always think that the three most important questions that if I was working in a retail store to ask somebody when they come in and they're looking for help, because the reality is that most people have no idea what they're looking for. Right. It's very, very similar to wine. Like there's so many different brands. There's so many different variations of it. And so, the most effective thing to me in terms of trying to limit it down to three questions are, what's the last cigar that you had that you really loved or you really hated? One of the two. How much money are you looking to spend and how long do you want to smoke? If you tell me those three things, obviously if you can't answer the first one, it's a little tough, but at least the next two are going to help to limit off certain sections of the humidor. I don't want to recommend a cigar for you that's a Churchill if you're only trying to smoke for an hour. Like it's a waste of time and money. But having a relationship where you can go, even if it's not in a person-to-person environment. I had this certainly with Bill Davies at Tobacco Locker, which is a store that to this day I've never stepped foot in, but I used to order cigars from him all the time. And I would order stuff, and then I would call back and I would say, hey, Bill, here's what I liked out of what I ordered. Here's what I didn't like about what I ordered. And he'd recommend something, based off of that, including some stuff that you would never expect to see recommended. He was recommending Nording, the original Nording by Rocky Patel. Yeah. Because he was like, oh, you based off of, I forget whatever the cigar that preceded it, but he's like, maybe you want like a sweeter wrapper, but you want, a shorter cigar that's, around $7 or $8. Like we have these Nording short torpedoes with Costa Rican wrappers on them. They look like they're painted. Don't worry about it. But they're going to be right up your wheelhouse. And oh, by the way, they've been on the shelf for 2 years, but they're just now smoking wonderfully. And he was right. Like those original Nordings at that point were fantastic by 2010 or whatever. And so having that relationship, whether it's in person, or online or whatever, is that's going to be the best growth. It's tough. I don't know if I would agree with 90% of the tobacconists in the country can't do that, but there are certainly some shops. I know that's not exactly what you said.
Yeah, no, I did say 90, but I did.
We're talking about the exaggeration. But look, the most impressive thing I've ever seen out of a cigar store is at the time it was Town and Country. Now it's known as Michael's in Euless, which is a store outside of Dallas, the DFW airport here in Dallas. I think that they might have, particularly with Nat Sherman closing, I think it's probably an undisputed. I think they have the best roster of staff of any shop in the country. And I remember being at the trade show one year. I think we were in the EP Carrillo booth, and they were next to us. I was having a meeting with somebody else, and they were smoking cigars, new cigars, and they were going, okay, we're only going to order these two sizes because Bob and Kenny and Steve are going to love the Robusto. I don't think anyone's going to love the Toro based off of what they had just smoked for a half hour. Wow. And then they say, but you know what? The Gordo or whatever, we got these 6 customers that are going to be all about this. And that's how well they know their customers. And they have a lot more customers than 12. They have thousands of customers. But they know exactly what's going to do well or have a very good guess about what's going to do well and what's not going to do well based off of what their customers like. It's a very exception of how a cigar shop is run, and they have incredible people and they pay them a lot more than any cigar shop reasonably does to have those types of people. But when you find somebody like that can, if you're just getting into this or you're really wanting to take it to another level, if you have that level of expertise, that's exactly what Tony went to school for. Tony went to school to help be your Sherpa when it came to wine / make the restaurant more money. But you have to, as a consumer, have to be able to provide some knowledge, and then them as the Sherpa has to be able to have the experiences and the knowledge to point you in the right direction. It's a two-way street.
I don't
It's
want
all about curation, right? It's all
Yeah.
about curating somebody's experience, in my opinion. It's
No,
all about
absolutely.
making, you make the best experience for somebody, and they're like, "Oh my god, like I read Half Wheel this week, and Charlie or Brooks or Patrick said this cigar's amazing, and I smoked it, and it was amazing because I was doing whatever." Why are you laughing?
no reason. I'm
I just
not.
think I think it's very relevant. I think that
very relevant.
if you curate somebody's experience, they're going to come back to you or your brand or your store or whatever forever, right? You curate that and you make them feel like it's something that's important and something that's relevant.
I don't want to
if I-
blow smoke. I don't want to proverbially blow smoke up your ass, Tony. But as a customer of your store, you have a guy I want to shout out, Dylan Bronson, who has not been working at the store like even as long as I've been going there. But without a doubt, he is he's the best employee you've ever had, in my opinion, is what as far as it comes to cigars and recommendation, because ever since he started working there, every time I walk in, he knows the last thing I bought. He asked me about it. He's like, "How did those turn out? What did you think of those?" And then I'm like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "I loved that." He's like, "Well, you should try this too. It just came in." And like I always walk out buying 3 more cigars than I intended to buy because I want to try. He's not pushing it on me. I'm like, damn it. I want to try this. I want to try this thing that he told me I would like because everything he recommends to me, it hits. It's good. That's hard to find.
It's funny, like what you're saying, Brandon, and then it correlates with what Charlie was saying. Like, so my experience as I was going shop to shop when I like turned 18, and I was just buying cigars and buying them blindly. I'd look at an aficionado and maybe like I would read something and go, "Oh, that sounds good," and I would try to buy that specific cigar. But what it was is I went to a shop, and it ended up being the shop that I worked at. But this guy, the owner, every time I came in, was like, "What did you like about that cigar?" And he would tell me to keep the bands. And he still does this 20 years later. When new customers come in and when new cigar smokers come in, he says, "Keep the band." And like he took me under his wing and kind of taught me the same mentality, like find out what they like so you can hone in like to, what are their dislikes? What are their likes? So you can try to show them, especially when you have it's overwhelming. Like when I go into a wine store, I know nothing about wine. So I'm that guy that's walking into a cigar store for the first time. I enjoy wine and I can tell you very simple things that I want out of it. And then I'm hoping that you as the retailer will give me that bottle that makes sense for me.
Well, it's very intimidating to walk into a wine store or cigar store. It's a very intimidating thing, right?
Right. But the fact that this, guy kind of took me on, like, I'm going to train this guy, like essentially is what he's doing. I'm going to help train his palate unofficially. Yeah. I'm going to teach him what to taste, what this spice is, what this, like where it's hitting your palate. And it's not a formal training by any stretch of the means, but it's like, it is a training, and shops that do that, like, I love when people are willing to take the time with the consumer to show them, to make their experience the best, not push what they're overstocked on. And I get that too, man. It's business. So I'm not saying there's like a way, but I'm saying that I appreciate that experience when the guy's saying like, this is a suggestion. I would take this. I think you're going to enjoy it, because of X, Y, and Z. You said you like this, this, and this, and you don't like this. And that also reflects back to what I was saying. Like what I miss about retail was helping create that experience for someone, and when I can do it with the brand that I represent, brands, then I love that experience again. But it's a different thing because we only make cigars for a specific audience, versus when you have a retail store where you can meet every palate. Like we don't have a Java. We never will. But some guys only want a Java And I love giving them a Java if that's what they want. You know what I mean? Like, that's the like point of it. And like, everyone kind of seems to have their own story of like how they got into it. And that's why we kind of ask, what cigar was impressed on you? Like, oh, I'm in, you know, and because it's different for everybody, because it's either a moment in time, an experience with friends. It's a memory that you want to reenact because, like, you know, like for heritage or tradition, it's a specific cigar because the way it tastes and like what it meant to you at that moment. But it really does encapsulate, and we've said this almost on every one of our episodes. It's no different than like hearing a song that throws you back 20 years and you're making out with that girl for the very first time. And it's like romantic and like you feel this particular way. It creates an emotional bond to that. And cigars trigger that stuff, you know, and that's kind of like when people say like, why do you love cigars so much, is because it triggers memories. It's not because it tastes so good that I have to have it.
Or
it's
it tastes exactly the same for, you know,
right.
Right.
It's the experience that I get to have with the cigar. Yeah. And I think everyone is attached to it in that way, whether they've necessarily attribute it to or not. Like it's triggered to memories, you know.
I want to address this question that we've gotten from the chat. Joe Sharmer asks, what do folks do who don't have access to a store like that? So Charlie, I think that this kind of comes towards you. Do you see your role in Half Wheel's role, like in the community, as playing kind of like what Dylan, my tobacconist, you know, at Havana House, you know, plays, who kind of suggests things to me? Do you see your role and Half Wheel's role as kind of filling that for people who don't have access to that? Or are you just kind of screaming into the void with your opinions? Or is it supposed to kind of build a relationship with your audience?
I always look at our ratings as a school lunchroom. You know, there aren't many cigar publications that do reviews that are willing to say anything remotely negative about cigars. And some of them just straight up say that they won't do it or they won't publish reviews under a certain score. We're the only ones that you can go to my knowledge, on a regular basis and see, you know, an 85 multiple times a week. And we're very fortunate in having the advertisers that we do, for the most part, that are okay with that, and that continue to support us. But I always look at it as kind of like a, you know, it's just my opinion or Patrick's opinion or Brooks's opinion. But ultimately, when we decide we're going to review a cigar, once that process starts, it's going to take something pretty catastrophic for it not to happen, regardless of if the cigar turns out to be the greatest cigar in the world or it turns out to be a 25-point cigar. And so there just isn't that outlet on a, you know, or at least not certainly at the notoriety that Half Wheel has, but there really hasn't been anyone else other than Half Wheel, at least the time that I've been in the industry, that's willing to say, you know what, this extremely hyped, very limited, talked about release from fill in the blank manufacturer isn't very good. And the reality is that everyone makes bad cigars. I've smoked cigars from every company, and I've yet to have any company that's just been killing it every time. And that's not to say that those cigars are always going to be bad. It may just be the 3 that I smoked weren't great. But I've always said that, like, if I was going out and buying a refrigerator and looking at like refrigerator reviews from people that have tried to figure out features and, you know, things about which refrigerators are best, if I'm going to look at something and all they're going to do is talk great about all 5 refrigerators that they're mentioning, like, I'm not going to pay attention, because they're just trying to sell me something one way or another. You know, I want to find the people that are going to say, okay, you shouldn't buy this refrigerator because, and that's not to say that you could be perfectly happy with that refrigerator or perfectly happy with a cigar that we have a 66 to, and more power to you. Like, if you were able to enjoy it and I wasn't, I'm not going to think that you're wrong. I'm going to like be happy that you were able to enjoy it. And it was unfortunate that I just smoked 3 of them and then give it a 65. But I always look at Half Wheel as the way for the people in the industry that can kind of go, oh, you know what? Like, you know, maybe this latest release wasn't particularly great for whatever reason. But, you know, I also think that ratings have, every day that goes by, become less and less important in terms of the act of selling cigars. consumers know way more about cigars than they did 5 years ago, and they know ungodly more about cigars than they knew 10 years ago, and certainly 20 years ago. They can pull out a phone in a humidor and look up a cigar and figure out, whether it's complete bullshit or whether it's, an entirely accurate review. They can have some sense of it, just like, I can do it in Total Wine when I'm trying to buy a bottle of wine. And so, our job in that sense, in terms of guiding consumers, is less important. I know that there's plenty of people that read our website that have picked a reviewer or two of us that say, you know what, if this person likes it, I generally will like it. And that's certainly helpful, but it's not a replacement for what I was talking about earlier. And to answer Joe's question, I think his name was Joe. You should call around. You should, I've bought cigars from Tony before. I imagine that if you called Tony and said, hey, this is what I like to smoke and this is what I don't like, here's what I'm looking to spend, that somebody at his store would probably, try to point you in the right direction. And then if you do it again and do it again and do it again, then you'll probably get, somewhere eventually. There's certain shops that certainly don't want to have to deal with that business and don't want to have to put in the work, but there are a ton of them around the country that would gladly take you on as a customer, since they're, in the fucking business of selling cigars to people.
Yeah, Joe should call Havana House and talk to Dylan Bronson, because he'll help him out. But I think that's good. Well, guys, I think this has been a fucking phenomenal conversation. The guy that we were trying to get to
Someone talked about Two Guys One Stick.
Okay, tell us about this.
Yeah, Two Guys One Stick. Yeah, we have to do that.
All right. So Two Guys One Stick was a cigar blog. I think the guys are based out of Colorado. I met them once at a trade show. They left a bad impression in a lot of people's mouths at said trade show. I want to say it was the Orlando show, because they went around and they said, hey, we're only here for one day, and we'd really like to get samples of like whatever your rarest, most limited, whatever you don't have samples for, because we're only here for one day, blah, blah,
That's
blah.
weird. That's weird. No one ever does that at the trade show ever.
It's defunct.
That was actually Tony and me.
Yeah.
It was not
trying to
Tony.
get free cigars.
So the way that I know this is because maybe it's on archive.org, but the header, the logo of the website was like, I want to say it was a black and white image, but it may have not been. But it was the two dudes on opposite ends, and they had photoshopped a cigar that Ratatouille style went into both of their mouths. And that was...
Are you kidding me, Charlie?
That was the logo
Are
of this
you
website.
kidding me? That was the logo.
I'm gonna.
That was the
Google
logo
that
of the
right
website.
now.
It's not around anymore, but see if you can find it on like archive.org.
All right,
That was Two Guys One Stick, who was
amazing.
around into 2012, maybe into
This is important
2013.
for posterity.
They were only around for a couple of years, but they weren't actually like the quality.
It was
of the cigar
two
block
guys
that
smoking one cigar.
That was the logo was two. Imagine like the Puros Indios Big Chief,
like
the
me,
big,
like this,
And then me.
Yep.
and then a guy like this.
Yep.
On
And
the
it was
same
one
thing.
interconnected cigar, photoshopped together. That
Oh
was
my
the logo
God.
of the website. It was.
That should be our logo, I think. I think we should do that. I think that's a lost and found, actually. I'll put that back here for lost and
No,
found.
please don't do it.
But yeah, that was Two Guys One Stick, a now defunct cigar blog.
I found it on the Wayback Machine.
Is the logo on it?
I'm looking. Hold on, it's loading.
That's amazing, though.
Holy shit, this is like in Japanese. What the fuck?
It was not in Japanese. It was definitely
No.
in English.
Yeah, where are you? What search engine are you using?
I'm using the Wayback Machine because he said it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, you're gonna have to go back to 2012 to pull it up.
Okay. Let's see
Don't
here.
pull up Two
Oh,
Girls, One Cup.
I'm working on not doing
We
that.
still haven't done like the Zach segment. He's been sitting here all day.
I know. We
Well,
just got things
Maybe,
gotta wait.
maybe we don't. Maybe we don't.
Okay,
want to,
guys, I have fucking I have it. Hold on. I fucking have it. Wait, we gotta look at this. This is fucking amazing.
It was a silhouette. My bad.
Oh
good.
my god.
I think that's a new logo for us, Jeremy.
Proportion.
except it'll
You're
be a giant penis.
I mean, it's very phallic. I don't know. Oh, Suzanne in the chat. My friend Suzanne.
All right, let's
My
do another
wife's
shot.
friend, Suzanne, and my friend wants to do another shot. All right, Suzanne, let's get on it. But pretty much, if a woman comes in the chat and asks for a shot, we pretty much can't turn her down. This
Don't
I
say-
can't turn down a good guy either. You know.
And
Dude,
so it goes.
I gotta be honest. Hi, Suzanne. It's nice to see you.
My bad.
I gotta be honest. I'm so glad you brought this up, and that I could find it, and we could literally.
Here's the crazy part, though. The blog wasn't like that bad. Like the actual writing and
But this
you know,
logo,
the
this
logo
it's
was a bit tough.
It's crazy. All right, I gotta stop looking at that.
I mean, you can tell that Tony and Jeremy can appreciate it. You can tell that was definitely not a blog from Miami, because you could imagine those guys like going around to people's warehouses and being like, "So this is our website," and you're like, "Wait a minute, did I see a YouTube video like this?" And you're like, "No, it's not YouTube. It's," and then you pull up the website on their computers, and you could just see the old Cubans like looking at the website and being like,
what have we done?
"Here's Luis. He's our graphic designer. If you'd like to call him."
Luis is fired.
Well, we were
Brandon,
trying.
What do you say? Just because we're already, I mean, do we want to go through all the segments, or we just want to do the call your shot, or do we want to like?
We were trying to get Nick, because Nick has been in the chat almost the entire time. Nick was on our guest last week, but he's been so active. Me and Zach were trying. We were trying to get him on to come on right now, and I sent him a link in Facebook messages, and I tried to message him through the chat. And Nick, you haven't answered, buddy. If you're out there, now is your moment, my
In
man.
somewhat related form, can you guys get Dion to do this show?
We're trying.
We're trying.
We had
Oh.
one of his employees almost crash
that-
a plane.
We had
Well,
Brian,
Brian-
on.
Brian
and
joined.
he crashed the plane while we were talking to him.
Yeah, no. Dion would be amongst guests that you could have on the show. That would be an interesting one.
It would.
I mean, Dion's an interesting person to talk to sober, but Dion having to do shots throughout the show seems like something that would be fun to watch.
I would like to have Robert on only because of how contentious it would be.
Caldwell?
Yes.
Oh,
You
we were thinking about doing like a thing where like we're gonna invite Robert on next week, but never let
Actually
him on.
have him on.
Yeah.
Like when you have what is it, the Jimmy Kimmel when he has
Yeah, the Matt Damon thing.
Matt Damon.
I don't
were
think
like,
that's the best thing for Robert, because I think if you were going to do it, you need to do it, but just not broadcast it. You need to have him waste 2 hours. Because if you like invite him on and then be like, "Oh, sorry, it's canceled," he's just going to complain about it for eternity.
So amazing.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
we need to invite him on and not have any viewers, and then
No, that's what I'm saying. Just not
Yeah.
broadcast. Just don't hit
Wait till, the,
broadcast.
wait till the show is over, so then he's like, "Hey, you know,"
No. And then have Brandon complain the entire time about how no one's watching.
Right. I feel like, man,
That's so good.
nobody wants to watch. Yeah. Plus, I'll never forget the time I was in the DR with Tony and Robert, and we had many political discussions of different things. So I might have to mute my mic for the entire podcast.
No, yeah,
Oh, someone got deported that trip. That was very
It was
interesting.
very, very interesting. We should have that would be a great segment, is to bring
Josh.
Josh to talk about the time he was deported from the DR right when he landed.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That
I mean,
they
it's
didn't
not
even
a
run
lot,
through
but
customs.
So do we have anybody else that has been through, or should we just say bye-bye?
Well, we don't have anybody lined up, and we've already been going for an hour 43.
We
So
haven't had Zach on yet, and he's looks like he's in a library.
Oh,
Oh,
look, Nick, we were trying to bring you on. Where is Nick at? I see him commenting still. Oh, wait, that's from way back. Who brought that back here?
I'm ready for the button.
All right, Zach, let's see if Zach, are you there? We'll try to bring you in for like a few minutes here. Does your mic work? Jesus Christ. His mic never fucking works.
what are you talking about, guys? How are you? I'm
Jesus.
Zach. I'm in a library.
This is
Why is it on delay?
I would like to talk to you guys,
We
but I can't because for some reason I have not. Bye, Zach.
Bye.
we try to bring Zach on, and every time his mic is not working.
That
Oh,
was
this-
super.
Hey, I like this idea. Look at Will out here. He really wants us to have no viewers. He wants us
Oh,
to
a poetry moment with Brandon.
No,
Let's do
we are not.
I
Going
think
to
we
do
should
that.
add that to our show.
No,
I think we
if
should have,
anybody
like,
would like to find my poetry, you can Google me. I have publications out there. You can find me, but I'm not going to be reading
Jeremy, do you want to
I
plug your
think
band
tonight.
the show.
I think tonight we should have like a reading by Charlie and a reading by Brandon.
Well,
like a religious reading?
No, Charlie.
Yeah,
I want
like give us a reading. Like, you guys are both writers. Like, come on.
Charlie, I have to tell you that on Sunday when we had our little pre-show powwow, I was telling them I was very excited to have you on as a writer like myself. I was like, man, this is gonna be a good conversation. We didn't really get to talk about writing that much, but it was still awesome.
I just write about why people should get fired in the cigar industry. Like, it's not that exciting.
So give me like a Jeremy should get fired.
What?
Because he's
Like
tired.
Patrick, if you want to have somebody on to like speak, like Patrick is a professional voice artist. Like he
Well, yeah,
records
he is. He was like a voice for the Cardinals, right? The Phoenix Cardinals or something.
Phoenix Cardinals don't exist. The Arizona Cardinals do, but he was not the voice. No, he is the voice of Salt River Fields, which is a baseball park where they do spring training in Phoenix. He's also the voice. He's a PA announcer for the Phoenix Mercury, which meant that he used to see my grandparents because they had tickets right behind him. They had front row seats right behind the announcer. So he used to see my grandparents more than I did. And my dad, because my dad also lives in Phoenix. So he would see them like weekly, which was always interesting over the summer. And then he also, he'll occasionally like fill in for the Phoenix Suns games and things like that. And then does a whole bunch of voiceover work for anyone that wants to pay him, I guess.
Maybe we should hire him to do a bunch of voiceovers for Zach. So when Zach comes on, they can be professional.
Or you could get Zach a mic, one of the two.
His mic situation, I don't understand it. So Charlie, everybody knows where they can find you. I had your website up here momentarily. I'm gonna
Two guys, one stick.
That is not it.
Just want to be very clear.
Let's talk about Two Guys, One Stick.
No, Tony, we already did that. We're gonna
let's keep it going.
We're gonna, but
I would bet pasta.
Yeah, I would bet that everybody listening knows about howfield.com. But I have one of the more interesting articles that I recently read off the site up here about the FDA rulings and the different news. That's been really informative, Charlie, and I've appreciated your coverage of that going. It's been an ongoing saga, but we would hope that going forward that people listening to the show would check us out on the iTunes, and if they can't listen to us live, but Tony, Jeremy, where can people find you in the interim when they're not watching you do shots? Where can they check out your work and what you're doing online? Is
that really called work?
I mean,
Jeremy, tell us what we can find out what you're doing online.
Yeah, when you're not on Four Shots.
So I'm not on Facebook, but you can find me on Instagram, the California Hillbilly. I do coffee and cigars in the morning on Mondays now, and Wednesdays we do live Zooms. If you want to just come out and smoke for a couple hours, I do that. You can find it on there, and I mean, like, that's it, right? Otherwise, I would normally say you'll see me in a town near you, but that hasn't happened.
Tony, what about you, my friend? Where can people find you?
Well, personally, I'm at Bellato, BELLATTO. Why are you laughing?
What about your new address? You gonna share that?
My new address is.
I could bring it up.
No, luckily, I don't even know.
Was that what that phone call was about? We were trying to debate whether that was the.
Well, yeah, I'm getting all kinds of text messages about what am I going to do about buying this house, but I'm ignoring them for you, for my studio audience. But you can find me at Bellato, at La Barba Cigars, Lost and Found Cigars. To forget about Caldwell Cigars, doesn't matter.
Forget about Caldwell's a good name.
It is.
Yeah.
Did you guys get that on your
Oh,
August?
Caldwell?
I guess it doesn't matter
Yeah.
now, but yeah.
I like forget about Caldwell.
No, forget about Caldwell. It'd be a great LaBarbera release.
But I mean,
Also a great
That's
lost
very
and
good.
found.
That's very good.
Charlie, I
like
think everybody already did forget about Cole.
You put that on the box.
Right?
Put that on the Vista. I think everyone did already forget about Caldwell.
Right. That's amazing. I love it.
Um,
Dude, I appreciate you coming on though.
yeah, Charlie, this has been awesome.
Hang with us and entertain the stupidity of us. And I enjoyed going down some rabbit holes with you tonight.
Yeah, no, I think we really definitely encourage a lot of people to enter the cigar business, and yeah,
You're so optimistic. I think that's the first
I have to.
optimistic thing you've said. Hey, I will say this in regards to Half Wheel to anyone out there. I enjoy the fact that Half Wheel, like he said, does not kind of sugarcoat it and like is not afraid of controversy or afraid of hate mail, like where do you live? I want to slit your wrist kind of stuff. Because I think that's like, I think
is there an address for that? Because I would like to.
There is an address on the bottom of the website.
But I appreciate, like, look, cigar smoking is subjective, what we like, what we don't like. But I appreciate the news that you put up, especially over the past couple of years with all the FDA, how far you guys have gotten in depth with it. And like that matters a lot to me because like it helps educate the consumers and sometimes even the manufacturers that are slow to the ball. So like, you know, for that sake, you know, I appreciate what you do. And, you know, I enjoy your company. It's awkward.
We had some good Chinese food one time.
Yes, we did. We had, and yep. You know what I almost lit up tonight when I was looking through my humidor is I vaguely remember you saying something about like the Oliva S series. And I had an old S, but it's not the size you were talking about. And I was like, oh, I should smoke that. And then I was like, no, I want to smoke that.
It has not aged wonderfully.
Most of the stuff in my humidor was not aged intentionally, and most of it has not aged beautifully.
But the interesting part about that cigar was that cigar came out 8 months before Serie V. So Oliva at the time was like a bundle cigar manufacturer. They were known for Flor de Oliva. They had the cloth bands, if you remember those.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
But they come out with Special S, which was like $12. And mind you, this is in like 2006, 2007.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And pre-Serie V. So they have had pre-nub, pre-cane. Oliva is the bundle guys that put cloth bands on cigars for some reason. And they come out with Special S and they say, hey, this is a cigar that Jose Oliva, like on the box it says, thinks that this is going to be good in 5 years. It's a cigar that's made to be aged, kind of like wine. Did not age particularly well. The cigars did not sell well at all because people were not in the business of buying $12 cigars from a manufacturer they had not really heard of. Right. And then Serie V came out 6 or 8 months later and obviously changed their business forever. But no, those cigars didn't, even at the 5-year mark, they were not particularly great. But they came out with a 9x52 Diadema, which was my white whale for the longest time. It's a massive cigar, and it was like $18 at the time. It was more expensive than I think the most expensive Padron outside of the 40th. And obviously did not sell particularly well, but a pretty looking cigar nonetheless.
Yeah.
Well, everybody.
Churchill. That's what I have.
Sorry? Yeah, the Churchills are probably better than, they're certainly better than the 9x52 Diademas. The craziest thing is they came out with 2 different Diademas. That's how interested they were in not selling those cigars. They came out with a massive Diadema, and then they came out like a 6x46. It was like everything that you could do to not sell the cigars. They like buy these cigars, wait 5 years. Oh, by the way, they're super expensive, and we're gonna make them in crazy ass sizes. It was really a masterclass in what not to do. But I haven't spoken to Jose about them like in depth about like if it was like some sort of passion project for him or one of the family members. It had to have been though, because it otherwise was a maniacal idea, particularly when you consider where that company was at the time.
Yeah. I mean, even the G series at that point, even in California, was $3.99 for the Robusto.
No, G didn't exist.
The G wasn't out when the S?
No, it was you remember they had the blue and the red. They had the bold.
Yeah,
They had
the bold.
Ovation, and they had Florida Oliva.
And then the
And then they
O.
did Master Blends.
Yeah,
Remember
yeah.
Master Blends? They fucking laser engraved the cigars.
So my
Oh,
timeline
yeah.
is messed up on that because, like, yes,
G may have been out, but I don't think so. I think it came later. Because G was a carryover of that was bold.
yeah,
Bold
That was
became
their-
G,
that was
Right.
and Ovation became O.
yeah, in the half moon box.
Even though the toilet bowls, we
Yeah.
have one here.
You got a
Looks like
toilet
it-
bowl?
We have it. You want me to get it?
Yeah.
Tony,
All right.
Tony, we can't. You're not close enough to your mic, babe. We can't hear you.
Charlie heard me.
Jeremy, Tony's doing that thing. Tony, Jeremy, before you came on to the stream tonight, like when it was just me and Tony, I was telling him about how he was disappearing in the window last week. He's like, I don't remember that. And here he's doing it again, where he's slowly shrinking and vanishing in the
I'm still
window.
here.
Oh man. Well,
I'm here. I'm right here.
Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and
Is that
listening this
sexy?
week. We are here every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. You can find us at 4 Shots ! With Tony and Jeremy. And now
We
you can
never
find
had
us.
Zach.
And
We never had Zach. We have to find Zach.
we had Zach. His mic wasn't working. We brought him on temporarily, and his mic didn't work again.
He's in a library right now.
He is. We'll just look at him. Let's just look at him. There, everybody look at Zach. So everyone,
Yeah, he's not
Hi,
working.
we'll
Hi,
do
Zach.
this. We'll just look at him while I read the ending here. So if you cannot watch us
Hi,
live,
guys. It's so
You
good to
can't-
see you.
if you cannot watch us live at 8 o'clock on Tuesdays,
I don't
we-
understand what's happening.
you can now download and subscribe to our podcast version, audio only, at anywhere you get your podcasts. Wherever you get podcasts, you can do that. And look, there's just Tony.
There I am.
Right.
All right.
So-
Yep. You got the blue cloth.
All right. So we've got the toilet bowl,
Yep.
That is crazy.
Oh yeah, the
known as a toilet bowl because it looks like a toilet bowl seat. And I think there's some in here still.
Oh my God.
So
You
these
still have
are
one?
there's like 5 of them in here actually.
What?
So these are the cloth band
Whoa.
Olivas. These are how they came
Whoa.
Looks
one
nice.
point or another. And then they went to this box, which once again,
Right. I haven't seen that
Oh,
box.
the old bold.
so
Oh
long.
man.
so by this point, they were transitioning. I don't know if we have both of them in here, maybe. So here's a red cloth. This is still in cellophane.
Oh,
So here's a red cloth band.
So anyone that wants to rob Half Wheel headquarters, you guys know where to go.
There's somewhere in our office is the paper band, because then they realized that making cloth bands wasn't economical.
Right.
Remember
So
the laser etched bands where they were.
I
doing
didn't grab
the-
one of those.
the
So this is
master
the
blend?
Special S. These are the 9x52
that's incredible.
diademas. If you're interested in not selling cigars, a great size. And then they came out with Series V. And when they launched Series V, they were going to do 20 events and they were going to raffle off at each event these. And this is, I think, perhaps the best Nicaraguan cigar that's ever been created. This is a
Whoa, Nick
Series
is
V
in the stream,
Culebra.
and that's oh shit.
Whoa.
And it tastes nothing like a
even-
Series V. It's super floral. It tastes very, very much like a Dunhill, like a Cuban Dunhill does, of all things. And they, I think, did like 2 events and raffled them off, and then did not do them. And then for many years, I would go to the Oliva factory and try to get Maria Jose, who doesn't run the factory, but more or less does run the factory, to like let me in room so I could take Series V Culebras. But then we gave it like a 96, and that was the end of that, because then all the reps came and stole the rest of them.
Yeah.
So that is a walk down the Oliva memory lane of a whole bunch of cigars. None of these would be good financial decisions to make.
I love it. Brandon, are you frozen? He is frozen.
Poetry time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's time for poetry.
Well, I got.
Is he in charge of the stream?
He is in charge of
Yikes.
Brandon.
Hey, I'm
There you
back.
are.
Hey.
There you go.
So-
Yes.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna try to wrap us up. We were about to cross the 2-hour mark.
Yeah.
It's been amazing. I think it's been our best conversation. And big words,
Take that,
big
Nick.
shots. Yeah, big shots thrown at Nick, because last week I said it was the best conversation we have this week, and the shots about best Nicaraguan cigar. So that is 4 shots. Charlie, thank you for coming on the show and hanging out with us for 2 long hours. I've been able to watch the time pass in
Thanks,
the window
dude.
behind you. It's been awesome.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah. Everybody, we'll see you next week, 8:00. And now you get to listen to this one last time just for Charlie.
Hey, Charlie, I recorded this just so it could annoy you.
1 shot, 2 shots, 3 shots, 4 shots, 5 shots.